Om Shanti. Good evening, everyone. Welcome. Welcome to the Monday sessions. As always, every Monday we invite a special guest speaker with unique experience on this path of spirituality. Like you always know, that unlike any other wisdom, spiritual wisdom is not easy to comprehend. And one of the best ways to understand spirituality is by listening to others' experiences and also having our own experiences. And especially when you get to listen to others' experiences, something subtle within ourselves will start resonating. And then we start understanding that, oh, the experience which I had is a similar experience, and it is also a spiritual experience, right? And more we get an opportunity to listen, more we get a clarity on this spiritual path, right? And especially when we are talking about in Brahma Kumaris, Baba talks about the deep aspects, subtle aspects which are not physical by nature, aspects which cannot be comprehended by our worldly intellect. So today we have with us Brother Danny from Australia. He's one of my dearest friends. We have been serving Baba's Seva as a part of a youth retreat. And that's how I came closer to Brother Danny. And he's playing a key role in as a Yajna Rakshak, right? And he's holding the fort in Australia. He's part of the board in Australia, if I'm not mistaken. Danny, please correct me if I'm saying something, right? So, and what I appreciate most about Brother Danny is like he's very practical. And you may wonder like, how come a person who is so practical get into this path of spirituality, right? And now today's session is more around that, like how can you make intangible tangible, right? So especially when Baba talks about the subtle world, subtle region, the first lesson that I, the soul, am not a physical thing, right? I, the soul, am eternal. How can you comprehend with any worldly intellect, right? And to take it a little further, how can you comprehend Baba's love, right? We understand what worldly love means when you relate to somebody, when somebody cares for you, you care for somebody else. So how that love feels like. And now Baba, who's abhokta, akarta, Akal Murat, someone who never takes a body of his own, all the way on the other end of the spectrum, how can we experience that love? And today's session is all about that. And so we invite Brother Danny. So Brother Danny, welcome. And we love to hear your journey. And we love to hear some of the pearls that we can carry with ourselves. Thank you for joining.
Thank you, Harsha Pai. Thanks for the sweet intro, Harsha Pai. Nice to, zoom across to San Francisco and be with the family there. For the topic today, because there were some nice suggestions given, and this idea of the tangibility of Baba's love was nice. And for me, the clearest example of where Baba's love was very tangible in my life was actually, when Baba found me and brought me onto this path. So I feel that, we love stories as human beings. Nothing resonates more with us than a story. Theory and philosophy is very quickly forgotten, but, stories are personable and memorable and individual, so they really reach into us. So I was just going to share a little bit about how Baba brought me onto this path and some of the things that happened. Also, it's just, I don't know, nice for me as well, because I love to remind myself of that. I mean, I was a person, I imagine, just like all of you. We are normal people. There was nothing significant or special about me. And my life in that way was also just whatever, like maybe a slightly less well-behaved child, but still just a normal kid, normal family. I actually lived in New Zealand. That's where I grew up. And I came to the Brahma Kumaris in a city called Dunedin in the south of New Zealand. And at that time, I was a university student. It was like my third or fourth year of uni. And for myself, I didn't even identify that I was seeking or looking for something spiritual, which is why I really feel that Baba found me. Internally I was quite a committed atheist, so it wasn't that I believed in God. I actually didn't even believe that I was a soul. And so most of the course, when I did the course, it wasn't particularly appealing. Actually, one of the wonderful exports of the United States, McDonald's, is where I worked. So I was working at McDonald's. I've been there like 4 years, and a friend of mine at McDonald's had done a meditation course, and it was actually my friend Teresa who introduced me to the Brahma Kumaris at that time, because I was reading autobiography of a yogi, and we were just sort of exchanging about spiritual themes, and she's like, I've done this course, you might find it interesting. And it appealed to me because it was free. Somehow I felt that spirituality was something that, shouldn't be commercialized or charged for. Those things kind of gave me distaste. And so I thought, okay, great. I gave her my book, and because she wanted to read that book, Autobiography of a Yogi, and I got involved in going to the meditation center. I initially went with my brother to do the course before my university exams. And my only real motivation actually was I thought, okay, I'll concentrate better. It will help me with my studies as a student. As like whatever, third year of law and honors, I was a bit stressed. So I thought I better, do something to support that. And, my first response was actually quite negative. Like, I remember me and my brother were just so critical about everything. And really, I do think that sometimes our university education doesn't always help us engage with life, because it's good to be able to assess things critically. But if I'm just so critical of everything, like, if that part of my personality is so well refined that I use it in all parts of my life, then I'll miss out on what life is about. And certainly I would have been in that situation. All we did was like find fault with the course. It's like, this is a stupid idea. Thinking positive all the time. Why would you bother doing that? It's like really nothing we accepted of what they were saying. It was really quite funny. I don't know how the teacher felt having such a miserable audience. It can't have been much fun for them. But still, I had a feeling from the person who was teaching that I just felt like there is something in them that I want to find out more about what they're doing. And so even though the ideas, like in an intellectual way, didn't resonate, because anyway, right, studying law, trained to be critical, left brain, not much of a heart, what chance is there for such a person to be spiritual? All I did was drink a lot of alcohol with my friends and go out, have what I thought was fun. And, that was sort of my life. Definitely not vegetarian, quite happy to use recreational drugs. So there wasn't really a space for God in my life. But still something was there. So I did go back, like once my exams had finished, I went cycling with my friend all around the South Island of New Zealand. Actually, the same friend that introduced me to the Brahma Kumaris, Teresa. And so we just passed our university holidays cycling about 100k a day with packs on our back and staying at different accommodations. And I had taken one of the Brahma Kumaris books with me. So, even though I didn't sort of like it on the face of it, there was something lingering there, because I thought, in hindsight, it was odd that I kind of, you can only pack so many things, right? Because you don't have much space. But I bothered to bring that book with me. And once my holidays finished, I re-signed up to do the course again. And this time, fortunately, I also didn't go with my brother, because I also, sometimes doing things by yourself is an advantage as well, because we assess things a little bit more neutrally and independently. Sometimes when we're with someone else, we get quite influenced by other people. And I certainly spent the first 20 years of my life just being influenced by everyone around me. And so this time when I did the course, I wanted to see it through to completion at least, rather than sort of stop part way and be negative about it. And so definitely I completed it and started coming for the morning class. And for me, it was with the morning class that the Brahma Kumaris teach that I really got a proper or different engagement with the whole knowledge base. The meditation in particular was very, very touching. I would feel like myself internally very transported, and different emotions would come up where I'd feel really overwhelmed or full of happiness, and I just couldn't explain the feelings I was getting. And I was quite such a cynical person that I didn't even believe in love itself. So it took a while for me to realize or accept the feeling that actually this is love that I'm experiencing. I believed that love was just sort of a biological event that was there to help human beings procreate, that very evolutionist sort of position or outlook on life, quite cynical and not really very self-aware. But once those meditation experiences started to come in, it really started to open my mind and cause me to question my own beliefs and my own worldview. Because, with our worldview, the way we think about life, we often get very stuck in the way we were brought up. And, we're not exposed to other ideas very much. Generally, the way society works in body consciousness is that we prefer to be with people that agree with us and resonate with us. And the same is true, to be honest, of the Brahma Kumaris, or spiritual people. We prefer people that hold similar views and ideas, and there's some comfort that we get from that. And so then naturally, if we're being exposed to challenging ideas, we don't feel comfortable. We want to move away from that. And so there has to be something, right, that will carry our connection through to continue in that situation. And for me, that was really Baba's energy and the vibes and meditation that did that. Otherwise, why would someone want to, engage in that sort of thing? So I remember one, I'm just gonna, if anyone feels like turning their camera on, you're most welcome. Is that means Harsha? It's just, you don't know that there's even anyone there, so it's sort of a bit odd for me. But if people don't want to, it's okay. But
so if you can turn on your cameras, that would be great.
I hope you don't mind my request. I know these days on Zoom we tend, not to do stuff like that, but it's cool if you know that there's actually a few humans there with like facial expressions and a sense of response. And, yeah,
it goes longest. Yeah, definitely.
But it's cool. I understand some people can't because you might be driving a car or otherwise compromised, not able to do it. Anyhow, so yeah, to have some willingness to have my ideas challenged, right? Generally what we would do is we just move away if our ideas are challenged. We don't like it. So I really feel that at that time it was Baba's love that gave me some internal feeling to continue with this. Otherwise, I wouldn't have wanted to have all of my ideas and views challenged. It's not the normal thing we do as people, right? The first idea that I found quite challenging actually was even just being a soul, as I mentioned earlier, because I just, I was studying all sort of mainstream subjects at university, and if anything, they would mock people that would believe in something non-physical, right? Because it was sort of unjustified in a scientific sense. So on the one hand, I'm a student at university where these sorts of ideas get laughed at or joked about. And then on the other hand, I'm studying with the Brahma Kumaris where such ideas are promoted. And it was like, okay, how can it be that all of society is wrong and these funny people in white clothes that are teaching out of this little house are right? Like, okay, all the academics, all the people across the Western universities, their hundreds of years of introspection study are wrong, and these people, these funny people, are right. That was sort of in my mind, right? It didn't make sense that they would be right and everyone else would be wrong, because it's not that both can be right. Unfortunately, you're either a soul or you're not a soul. Am I just a bodily being, or is there more to it? And these sorts of battles were taking place inside me as I came through these different ideas as to, like, who do I believe? And ultimately in meditation, really just Baba gave the experience of I'm an energy sitting in here. I am so detached from my body. And I was just so shocked because it made it really clear for me that, I had so much sort of faith or belief in the teachers from my high school, the professors at my university. And I'm like, oh my God, they're wrong. Everything they're teaching me is wrong. And then Baba, because once you experience something, actually Harsha was saying in the beginning, in the introduction about experience is the greatest authority. We can't, no one can mess with my personal experience. And then I could see that everyone else is just in their personal experience of being body conscious. So that's what they believe based on their personal experience. But when they die, they will experience that they're not a body. But I don't have to wait until I die until I have such experiences. But many people, majority of the world population, will wait until they're dead before they experience they're a soul, right? Because they've their own prejudices, which I had, the way we close our mind to things, it blocks down a reality. And one thing which I found interesting or odd is when I came to Baba, once that door sort of broke open that I'm a soul, it started to change the way I thought about things that had happened in my past as well. Because, our worldview forms like a box around us that filters or affects the way we interpret everything that happens in our life. And we get locked into that. And I very much feel for those of you who know the phrase in the morning Murli class, Baba talks about a locked intellect. This is that lock. Our perception, our worldview, the way we're raised is like a jail that we're in, and we need to get bust out of that jail, but we're not willing to come out because we're afraid of life without that jail. We're afraid to have our ideas challenged. We're afraid that the people that we believed in and trusted could be wrong and lying to us, not lying intentionally, but providing information based on their own body conscious experience, which is a false experience or a curated experience, if you prefer. And that experience they've curated for themselves is out of ignorance and not knowing otherwise. And then they build that worldview and share it with everyone else. And it becomes a thing that we all get collectively stuck in. And devotional practices can often be very similar to that. Just my dad did it, my mum did it, my grandma did it, my grandpa did it, and this is what we do. And if you try and ask why, people can't offer any explanation, and it's just another jail that we live in. And so Baba was sort of pushing on the limits of my personal jail, and the soul was the first one to break. And when that broke, when there was those experiences that I'm actually not my physical form, I'm a being of light energy that lives inside this body. I look out through my eyes. I'm separate from my body. Then when about 2 or 3 years before I came to Baba, my brother had passed away. He was killed in an avalanche in New Zealand. And I started to remember experiences that I had around the time of him passing away. I remember when I had gone to collect all of his belongings because he had been living in a town about 300 kilometers from me. And when I went into his room and started taking his things, I had such a overwhelming feeling of his presence. And I thought, because I couldn't, process that, I was just like, okay, the reason for this is just because I'm upset. I'm emotionally, affected, and so I'm feeling like I can feel him. And my mother shared her experience with me one time that, I heard him talking to me, comforting me, and saying, "It's okay, mummy, it's okay." And in her mind, she spoke back, but then she sort of said to me, I think I'm just really upset. So even in body consciousness, if we have experiences where it's non-physically based, we will find ways to justify and explain it so that we don't have to change our worldview. All right, that's how committed we'll be to our worldview, and we don't want to break our lock. But when I looked back on it, I just was like, it was clear to me that I was actually feeling his presence because he's only just recently left his body. Naturally, he's going to be more attached to his personal belongings. Those are all of his things, and also to me. And so I just, from energy and vibes, I felt him. He was present there. Whatever the soul is doing, they haven't immediately taken rebirth. And so I could explain it in an easy way, but that, it couldn't accept it at the time like that. And so it's interesting how once our view changes, we start to think about our past differently. And so many things start to come up from our past once we feed gyan into them. Once we feed in an understanding of karma, I start to reprocess many events in my life. Actually, I was just talking the other day to a friend, and they're raising children at the moment, and just they were talking about how it is with their children, and we were somehow discussing the way kids are with their parents. Because when I came into Gyan, I had a few sort of, how would you say, complaints about my parents. And, I felt like they should have done this better. They could have given me more love. They had expectations of me. They kind of forced me to go to university. I might have wanted to do other things, but because that was what they wanted, so I felt pushed into that. That type of thought was definitely in my mind. But then once knowledge is there, and I'm looking back, a few times it came up in my meditation that I remembered even as a child, sometimes my parents would want to hug me, and I would like be like, mm, moving away from them. And then I realized that actually I was not an easy child to love, because I had my own little personality, right, where I would be quite isolating, and I would push people away from me. And sometimes I could see from their expressions, like it came in my mind's eye, that they felt rejected. So, like, because they're trying to express love and I'm like, and it's also hard for a parent, right? Because every kid comes with their own little quirky personality. And, it just made me reprocess things that had happened as a child growing up, that, I want to look at things through an empowered lens. Like I'm thinking that they should have done this and they should have done that, but they're just human beings like me who have their own, we say, sand scars or personality traits. They're doing their best, but they also had to deal with me. And I don't think that was very easy for them to deal with either. So then, it frees me from the past, because now I'm thinking, oh, well, I'm actually the creator of that. It's me who brought my own personality and sand scars, and I don't want to blame them. Because if I blame my social environment, I blame my parents that, they didn't give me enough love or care for me enough, how will I move forward in my own life? That blame is part of my locked intellect jail that holds me back, So everything starts to get reprocessed and seen through the eyes of spiritual knowledge. And in some ways, in devotion, they talk about the third eye opening. It's like that's the eye that really sees things as they are through spiritual understanding. And when I have that spiritual understanding, it naturally wants to empower the way I've experienced life. And anything where I've sort of processed and internalized disempowerment naturally wants to come out as I go along, so that I can think about it differently and get free from it. Because, the past can really hold me back from enjoying this life, whether it's my, sometimes in the morning Murli Baba says, forget everything of your old life, forget how you were raised, forget what you've been educated, try and come at everything with a clean slate. Because really, the way we encoded all the information in our upbringing was without a spiritual understanding. And that doesn't, allow us to take an enlightened perspective on who we are now. It can be holding us back. So again, I really feel that is something really, Baba's love really freed me up and allowed me to move out from the box, the jail that I was in. And another thing that also helped me get out of my jail was my first trip to Madhaban and to India. Because, another jail is culture. And, hardly I met anyone, I think, from a different culture growing up. Like the first 20 years of my life, I just didn't have exposure to people from other cultures. New Zealand is a very, especially back in the 80s, it's a pretty quiet place. And it's also very kind of like agricultural farming community, not very broad-minded. It was a nice place to grow up and it was safe. But I would say, without any disrespect to myself, that I was a pretty small-minded person, because that was my social context. And so, going to, like, my first plane trip was actually going to India and going to Madhaban. I had never been on a plane before. And going from such a clean country without many people to landing in Delhi airport was quite different. And the the sounds, the smells, just the volume of people, it was so sort of like overwhelming my senses. And just how like filthy, no disrespect, but like from a little place that was so clean and just full of green farmland, to this place which is just so much dust and people everywhere, and people were, I remember they were burning car tires to stay warm near the airport, and it stinks like nothing else, right? Burning car tires, that rubber is, and they're breathing that in and whatever. It's and there's people everywhere. It was just like cultural overdose and contrast, and it causes us to rethink about our own assumptions about what's true in life. And I think one of the reasons, for those who sort of are familiar with Baba praising people from foreign countries in the Murli, I think one of the appreciations that Baba has when people come from a foreign country is that there is such a cultural jump to come across to engage with this spiritual path. It's a huge divide to kind of work out, okay, the things which I assume in my culture are really significant have no meaning here. And so again, it's really Baba's love that creates an energy underneath all of that allows that to carry forward and to change. I think earlier I was sharing how I didn't even believe in love. I was so cynical about love. And it was really, 3 or 4 months, I think, before I really realized or accepted that the thing which is pulling me is actually love from God. And it's that energy which is transforming me inside and empowering me. But Baba's love is so subtle and non-invasive. I never felt that someone was expecting something from me or forcing me to do something or wanting something back from me for it. And so it was such a different experience from what I had been conditioned to believe love was, that it was hard for me to even recognize that it was love. I was so sort of touched and emotional when I sort of understood or had that kind of epiphany that, man, this is love. And love doesn't come from a chair or a car or a house. It comes from another living being. And there was no one, you know what I mean? Like, in the sense that I was like, where's it coming from? There's not a human being who's transmitting it. It's coming from the divine. And it's coming from that third eye connection to the one beyond this world. And it's like a portal opened up whereby my intellect could connect to that energy of God that's beyond this world, and I could absorb and catch, enjoy, experience those vibrations. And it's really like, if that hadn't opened, I couldn't have come onto this path at all. I would never have had the strength to challenge my own rigid beliefs, or the strength to accept everything in my life and just sort of think about it differently. I couldn't have come out of that, but there was that force empowering me. Harsha, by just seeing the time, I know that there was different segments. So I just wanted to check if we're supposed to have a meditation now or something like that.
No, whenever you feel comfortable, we can pause and then have meditation. Yeah, no hard boundaries. Yeah.
Maybe we can do a little meditation then. Just, I find that, even the consciousness that we're in affects how we enjoy or engage or absorb information, sure. Which is why we also always have our meditation before Murli as well. And it will also should also improve the quality of the speaker too. So it's in your best interest if I have a meditation break as well.
Yeah, I like the context of Baba's love, which is not coming from any particular being. Maybe you can take us into that experience.
Yeah, happy to. So I'll just speak a short commentary, and the purpose is really to take inside these thoughts and to use them to create that experience inside your own consciousness. So I start by visualizing in my mind's eye a light energy at the center of my forehead. Whether I see a star or just a light coming from behind the eyes, I use my thoughts to create that image, and I place it mentally at the center of my forehead, visualizing I, the soul, a tiny star of living energy, looking out through these eyes, but seated at the center of the forehead. I, the soul. In this consciousness, I can naturally connect to God. I know the non-physical address of the Supreme Soul is beyond this physical world. And with one pure thought, I take my mind into the presence of God. I am visualizing Shiv Baba in the soul world, my Supreme Father, who is just made of this pure, divine light. My mind absorbs energy, vibrations from God. The more I am able to visualize and see the divine, his energy is coming into me. I'm absorbing his vibrations with my mind through my third eye. Baba is like an ocean of love. His natural vibration and energy is soul conscious love. And so I'm connecting into his love, absorbing his love into my being. Then I bring my attention back to I, the soul, in the center of my forehead, the being of light, empowered with God's love. Om Shanti. So these are like little sweet drills that we can do during the day or any time. It's like I just connect in a second with Baba and then come back to what I'm doing. But, you know, it brings a different feeling and a different vibe into everything, right? And it just underlines that awareness of who my companion is, who's with me. I find on this path we never feel alone or lonely, because, you know, when there is that type of energy with us, there's always a best companion. There was another thing I wanted to share about, which is more contemporary, and that was about a retreat that I've done recently, which I had a chance to share with Harsha about a little bit earlier. And by all means, feel free to ask any questions about what was being shared earlier. But I wanted to share about this silence retreat that I've been on. In Australia, we're very lucky that Baba has 4 retreat centres, and about an hour and a half from where I'm based in Sydney, there's a very beautiful retreat centre in the Blue Mountains, which is sort of quite a famous or well-known part of Australia because of its natural beauty. And it's amazing that Baba has a property there next to a national park, which is about 130 acres, which is, what's that, about 65 hectares of it. I think you guys use hectares. Huge piece of land. And there's like a historical cottage that was built just by putting stones on top of stones in the late 1800s, I think. And that's one of the meditation rooms in Baba's retreat centre. And every year, the BK family has a silence retreat in that stone cottage. They only have like 12 places for that retreat because they keep it as a small sort of focused group. And it's a 7-day silence retreat. The actual stone cottage itself is kind of like set in this very golden aged garden with the most beautiful flowers and trees and little running creek and lily pads for frogs and a wee waterfall in the river, the creek that runs by, and the water is so clean that they actually use it for all the drinking water at the retreat centre. They've had it like professionally tested. It's of such high quality that they don't need to treat it. It's completely good to drink and fantastic. So it's very, very picturesque and attractive to even be there for anyone. But then to be there for a silence retreat with Baba is so good. And this silence retreat's got a bit of a difference to it. Actually, the sisters that organise it have picked up some of the specialities of Vipassana and added them into the rules for the retreat. And it really makes it so powerful. One of the things I love about spirituality and the Brahma Kumaris is that, we have like an open license to borrow good techniques and ideas from everyone. When people are more religious, it's like, no, you can't do anything that anyone else does. This is our religion and it must be like this. This is what we do. But spirituality, it's like, no, if someone's doing something else which works really well, let's pick up and learn from them and adapt that. So they've adapted some of the Vipassana ideas into the BK silence retreat, and it makes it really, really effective. The Vipassana ideas are like how when the Buddhists do silence retreats, they have no eye contact between participants, no writing, no reading, and no like smiling at anyone. And I thought they were quite odd ideas at first, like why would you do that? And the Brahma Kumaris, we are happy and we do service and give drishti to people and that kind of thing. We do have some guided meditation during the program and we listen to the Murli every day, but apart from that, no reading, no writing, and nothing. And it's actually so good because I've done other silence retreats in the past, and sometimes the atmosphere feels like it's a bit forced or people are trying to not talk, but they want to talk. But as soon as you cut out the eye contact and the non-verbal interactions, it's very natural to maintain silence. It makes it easy, because actually eye contact and connecting with people is a precursor to speech, right? If I sort of smile at someone, then I'll think about what I'm going to share with them, or they'll think, okay, what's Dan going to say to me? It creates an atmosphere where people want to talk to each other. But if you take it away, then people are just going to stay with Baba. Like the idea is that I don't pull anyone else from Baba to me, and no one else pulls me into their kind of connection, so that I can just stay internally connected to God. So the whole focus of the retreat is 8 hours of seated meditation every day. That's the only program. So there's like the morning meditation 4 to 5, then there's meditation 6 a.m. to 6:30, then the morning class 6:30 to 7:15. Then we just have some gentle exercises, then breakfast together. Then after breakfast, there's a break till 10 o'clock, then 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. meditation. And in the meditation, there's no music, there is no anything. You just sit and meditate. So you're left basically to be entirely with your own mind and your own problems, if you have any, and just to find your own connection to Baba, and nothing will disturb you or take you away from that connection. Then after like 1 o'clock lunch, and then there's nothing after lunch until 4 o'clock, then 4 to 6:30 meditation, and then 6:30 is dinner, and then 7:15 to 8:15 meditation, then bed for 7 days, no other variation to the program. And really, like, there is nothing at all to do except have remembrance. Like, you can go for a walk, but even when you're walking, right, mentally, what are you going to do at that time? Because there's nothing to pull your attention. Mobile phones, of course, and laptops are confiscated willingly. Means those who go there have to agree that if I'm going to go, I'm serious enough about it that I'm not going to take those things with me. And it's fantastic. So there's no distraction, nothing else. It's like, for me, it's the only real remembrance retreat that I've actually done in the Brahma Kumaris. You know, because we have lots of retreats where the theme is yoga or remembrance, but we talk lots and we eat lots and we do all sorts of other things, but we often don't have that much time for a yoga buddy in our BK retreats. Whereas this is like 8 hours yoga every day seated. And also everyone's so punctual. This is maybe naughty to say, but for those of you who have been to BK retreats or programs, punctuality is not our strong point, right? People don't often come on time. But because there's nothing else to do, there's no one to talk to, there's no message you've got to send, everyone's completely on time for the program because you've got absolutely nothing left. There's nothing else to do. And I think for me, that's the whole reason why it was so powerful. I was just left inside myself with my own thoughts and my own practice to connect to Baba. Sometimes it would be like, for an hour unbroken, there would be complete pin drop silence in the room where it seemed like no one had even like moved their arm or adjusted their position. Like, it's that quiet that you hear everything and anything. And my internal laboratory is just, I'm practicing my soul consciousness, connecting to Baba, holding my focus on Shiv Baba, or having different visualizations, like emerging the experience of Bapdada's drishti, if that works for me. Whatever my practices are, and just going deeper and deeper into them. And I felt like the first 3 or 4 days was like more like a detox in a way, that, you know, just a bit of kind of like mental dribble is there because I've come from being busy and having things to do and responsibilities. And so those thoughts come up for a while, and then eventually those thoughts clear out as well. And then it's like, I really feel I'm just connected to Baba and everything that I'm doing. And then when I sit for yoga, it's so easy to move into really sweet experiences. One experience that really touched me was, I was remembering the drishti from Baba in Diamond Hall when meeting Baba face to face there. Even if we're far away, Baba's drishti is so powerful. And, you know, when Baba's eye contact comes on me, there's that moment where you totally feel like I'm looking at God and God is looking at me, and there's a sense that no one else exists between us at that time. He's only looking at me. So I'm emerging that type of feeling of Baba's drishti and visualizing Shiv Baba in the forehead of Dadi. and sort of sometimes seeing that image of angelic Brahma there in the sort of behind Daddy's face. And I got sort of pulled into an experience of, it was like the body of Daddy Gulzar just got completely taken away. It wasn't there anymore. And there was just the sparkling form of Avyakt Brahma's angelic dress, and just so much power coming from the forehead of that angelic being. And I had such a feeling like the intensity of Baba's power is so much more than I realized. Because I had this feeling like, man, he can create the golden age world so easily. That's nothing for him. Just feel his energy, his power. It's, just because I may not necessarily recognize it sometimes when I become body conscious, but it's not a big deal actually. It's like in my normal ordinary consciousness, I don't appreciate the magnitude of Mapdada's personality and the power that being has, because he's a source beyond the powers of this world, if you know what I mean. This physical world is a system with its own energy, but it's not tapped into that power. And I felt like, we need to wake up and all realize that who has come, whose actual energy is this. It's so amazing. And I just felt so lucky and privileged that really, like, for no reason I've ended up on this path with Baba, like through, in a sense, through no good deed of my own. Like, really, I was not meaning any disrespect to myself, but I was leading such a useless life, just wasting my time getting drunk and messing around with my friends, and not understanding anything deeper about what life offers. And what's the point? Like, just leading for myself selfishly, and it doesn't help anyone. Whereas this is like, I'm getting more acquainted with a deeper level of truth about the whole world that affects everyone. And if we unpack how our world is so consumed with its own body conscious problems, and it's so pointless. Like, there's not going to be a solution reached for anything in the world just by adding more body consciousness into body consciousness. Like, all the efforts that people make to maintain a mortal life, would be changed if they just understood that we're souls and that actually we take rebirth, just to sustain life at the expense of quality of life, or to, anyway, that's a long list, right? If I go on about that, the things that people do, it's so pointless. So this experience in the meditation retreat, anyway, as you can see, was very deeply moving for me personally. It had such a good impact. And that atmosphere, it's so sustaining and it's so spiritually uplifting. And it also brought up lots of things from inside me naturally, things from my own spiritual childhood coming to Baba that were very moving for me. The way Baba sustained and took care of me like a father, or all sort of recorded inside, and I could relive and re-experience those moments. So anyway, that's that was that retreat. So it's partly triggered because I think Harsha had asked, what's the need of our time, or the call of our time now, and our practical spiritual things we need to do. And really, I feel like time for my own spiritual practice, my individual solitude, or if there's ever opportunities for collective solitude, that's definitely more powerful than individual solitude. And my own internal spiritual focus to deepen my personal connection with Bapdada, because really there's no one else that can protect the soul or look after us. It has to be natural and not forced, and come from our own realization. But I help care for someone who's very unwell here in Australia. And, you know, it just makes it very clear, like when we're sick or not well, there's no one else who can support us or look after us except God. You know, like human beings are not always going to be available. And also mentally and emotionally, people are very limited in the support that they can give. Whereas the energy and the vibrations from someone who's beyond the ups and downs of this world is just the most stabilizing force. So yeah, these were my experiences from that retreat, and I'm just time checking with Harsha Bai because I don't want to go over what I'm supposed to go over because there's
You have
more
another
meditation
half an
and
hour.
Q&A. Oh, sorry.
You have another half an hour. We can, unless anyone have any questions.
Yeah, there was Q&A as well, right?
Yeah, but looks like so far there are no questions, so we can continue. So I'm little more interested in the silence retreat, where because for me, Anuja has a question, so we'll come back. Yeah, so Baba, in one of the Murli, Baba said that use pictures. You just sit before one of 7-day course pictures is before a tree or a ladder or a three worlds. So for me, the picture that resonates very well and very effective for me that works is the three worlds, and especially the old version. Like the earth in the middle, and then there is three zones within subtle region: Brahma, Vishnu Puri, Shankar Puri. And when you're sharing your experience, I felt that you get a glimpse of Shankar Puri, which is like total silence. You're not feeling any sense of love or any of those things, or you're not churning knowledge. Churning knowledge is like more of a Brahmapuri thing, right? And experiencing love and things like that, and or even divinity and things like that is Vishnu. And then Shankar Puri is total silence. You're very close to Baba, something which is very near, right? And then if you come back from that state of mind, and then you ask like, oh, how was your meditation? And then you say like, how was my meditation? There's not much to say. You're total silent and you're still. And then it is not an experience like, oh, it felt good, it felt like this, that, and the other. No, it was like you are there with Baba, that's it. Not much to say, right? So, and then Baba says, like, especially the most powerful meditation is when you go into your seed stage, and then you're just you, Baba, in the soul world. That's it. Not much. You know what you need to know, and then you have enough knowledge. You don't have to even churn. You are you. Just be yourself and be with me, and then you know who I am. And then you don't even have to churn Baba ocean of love, Baba this, Baba that. Just go into the presence, right? And especially when we go into that presence, that's when is a real power, right? So, and of course we will get there after churning and after holding a loving state of presence, and then from there you get into that being you, right? Absorbed in yourself. So I was thinking, what was your practice of going into that silence? Because 7 days is a good amount of time, right? After a point, you run out of the points what to do, right? So you are eventually forced to get into that state of total silence and be with Baba, right? So I was wondering any process that you used, or if you go back and then reflect on, oh, how was I able to stay there with Baba for such a long time, right? What are the things that distracted you from being with Baba? What are the things that helped you to stay there? And then And of course, you will not know when you are with Baba. When you come out and then reflect on that being with Baba, it felt totally different, right? So if you can elaborate a little bit around that, that would be nice.
Mm-hmm. Cool. And I think everyone experiences, yoga and things differently, in the sense that some people are more visual, some people are more orientated around the use of words and language to create experiences. So it's not like one size fits all. Like the only puri I know is the one that you have with the chickpeas, and then that one, that's the puri I know. Yeah, I don't know the other puris much, but in terms of the silence and the practice, I found that I would spend quite a bit of time tuning with myself in the center of the forehead as a soul. And sometimes I just felt like I am sitting here, and when I use the word I in my mind, it naturally referred to the being here. In body consciousness, when I say now, I'm Dan, then there's a feeling in which I'm referring to my whole body. I is connected psychologically to my whole form. And that broke during the silence retreat. When I said I, it didn't feel like I was talking about my whole body. It felt like I'm just talking about the one that's living inside. So it was a very natural sort of feeling. And when I would sort of tap into that, then it became quite natural to connect up to Baba. Definitely, like because it's like 8 hours of yoga a day, energy would come and go a bit. So sometimes like 20 minutes might go by and I just sort of don't really feel like kind of doing much inside. So it's not that you're like 8 hours trying to have seed stage yoga. There's times where I would kind of just let my mind run for a bit by itself, because you also don't want to, or I also don't want to give myself a headache in the sense that I'm pushing too hard or being a bit too rigid or forceful with my mind. It has to be quite natural. And the aspect of soul consciousness, bringing my own energy into the forehead, really helped for me. That made it feel like I didn't have to force much. That was kind of like, I guess, my touchstone, or where I would come back to a little bit. My default position was just to sit inside as a soul. The detachment from the senses, I think, for a lot of us became quite natural. One of the meditations in the evening that we would do, everyone would sit in a circle. And I don't know if you've done that with groups from the public. If you get people to sit in a circle, it generally creates this really uncomfortable vibration where people feel that everyone's looking at them. So it's like, because the drishti is cutting across the circle. But we would sit in a circle and there was not a single vibe that it's uncomfortable, because people are so withdrawn inside that we're not looking at anyone else, right? Like, we've just been spending days and days in silence without interaction. There is zero interest in interacting with anyone. So I'm not at all looking out. And actually the circle meditations were very powerful because, naturally spiritual energy projects forward from our body. So when everyone's sitting in a circle together, everyone is sort of pulling or pushing their energy into the circle from their meditation practice. And I could really feel it in those circle meditations, where it's as if like we were kind of more collectively holding each other by sitting in a circle and supporting each other's meditation practice. So the silence was also collective aspect as well. Like, doing a silence retreat by yourself is very different from doing it in a group. And definitely in a group, it's like mutually supportive, because we're all connecting to the same Baba, and his energy is like being pulled down from his world. And there was definitely this really sweet feeling too. You know how Baba will say in the Murli that remembrance begets remembrance. If you remember me, I remember you. The retreat totally felt like that as well, where, like, you know, even it's only 11 people in the retreat, but our focus on Baba is pulling his remembrance, like, because naturally, right, like if I remember you enough, Harsha, at some point you'll be there in San Francisco and you'll just think, Dan, you know, like I will emerge in your consciousness just through that remembrance. But that's us as two bodily beings. But of course, for Shiv Baba, the second anyone remembers him in soul consciousness, he feels it. It pulls him. And so many times during the retreat, I just felt like we're totally pulling Baba's energy down here. You know, our mind, our consciousness, our intellect is that conduit that brings energy from his dimension down into this physical world. And I also love that 3 worlds poster, because really the 3 worlds is what Raj Yoga meditation is, right? If I can detach myself from my engagement with my physical part and my human obsession with my bodily form, if I can detach from that and recognize that I'm a soul, then I can taste the best things that life can possibly offer, that make the rest of this entire world seem completely tasteless, because that is what Baba is. He's the experience that's so beautiful and so pure that everything else feels like hopeless and useless once you've tasted that. You know, it's like you'll never go back to something average once you've stayed in luxury. Then you don't want to live, you know, just with cheap crap. And in a sense, that's what this is as well. You know, the Iron Age world, I'm not meaning to be disrespectful, I'm just giving an honest, fair comparison. The Iron Age world is cheap crap compared to the experience of God, his love, his purity. And so we want to go beyond this world and connect to that energy, because then you'll never forget that taste. And sure, maybe I do taste it, or maybe I just want to taste it, but that's worth hanging out for. It's worth pursuing, because once you've got it, you'll never ever regret the effort you made to achieve it.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. So once you taste Baba's love, your mind will not go for something lower. It's beautiful.
Yeah. I mean, I hope people don't mind that I say things like the Iron Age is crap, but it's just, you know, like, gotta, well, what is, it's just got to be honest.
Respect. Yeah.
Yeah, it wouldn't be fair to promote the offerings of this world when it's compared to something that's better. That's all. So
Anuja had a question. Anuja, feel free to yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, Om Shanti, brother. Really lovely talk. I could resonate with a lot of things that you said, Dan. So, brother Dan. So it was really, really nice. So yes, the question I had is a little off from the talk. Sorry. So I have a teenager daughter who's 13-year-old. So like right now, she doesn't live with me. She's with her dad, and in future, I'm going to relocate back to my country. So she's gonna live with her dad forever. So when she is with me, she does meditation. She feels that connection with God, right? But as you rightly told about your life story as well, that the teenagers are so much into body consciousness. They live that kind of a life, like I mean, I also find it useless, right? So many things that she keeps telling me. She's very close to me. So how do I, like, and she doesn't want to be a loner. She wants to be accepted in the class, accepted in the school. She wants to be popular as well, right? So, and at the same time, she has to balance it out with her constant connection with God, right? She's at least nods in front of me that yes, it is important, that so that she can stabilize herself when she comes back from her school, right? But what is your advice to me that when I'm relocating back to my country and I'll be just doing a Zoom calls with her in future, the way we are interacting. So how will I keep her motivated to meditate on her own, if not with me? Because so far so good. She was with me. She even visited Anubhuti often with me. But I feel worried sometimes that she should not be doing the useless things that other girls in her class are doing. So what's your advice there?
The thing with any human soul is they have their own journey, and whether a friend or a parent or a teacher, we can't do more than contribute in the way that they want us to contribute, to try and shape that, to guide them as best we can. And I would think the main thing is just to maintain the most loving and kind relationship you can with her, to, offer that unconditional motherly love and support, so that you're always someone that she reaches out to when she has challenges and all of that. Because then, the relationship is maintained, and when she wants something, she will come to you and ask. And, your presence and your wisdom will be like an angel on her shoulder. Because, when kids have to make decisions in their own lives, they think about the people around them and what they might think about that decision. So in a sense, she will consult you internally in her own mind, even if she doesn't consult you in a more tangible way. And that consultation will just be based on the relationship and the love and the connection over the years that's been built up. I don't think you can do more than that. And it may be that you have to, as a mother, watch her make wrong decisions, but she will learn from that when the time is right. Because, probably you might think in your own life, definitely in my life, I did so many stupid things which I thought were great. And only once I had done them did I realize they were stupid. And that's also part of the journey of learning, so... but at least if you're there as like a non-judgmental, loving figure, because the main thing is they always come back to you, right? So the connection needs to be maintained, so that it's a natural feeling that I want to ask mum.
Thank you.
That's cool.
Thank you. No, you did answer my question. The thing that you said, even in a non-tangible way, she can ask me in her head. That's very important, because I have given her a lot of knowledge before I'm relocating. So she might be able to connect those dots at the right time in a non-tangible way. Thank you.
No worries.
Shobna, you had a question.
Yes. I no matter how much I want to concentrate and meditate, but my mind doesn't stop. It just keeps on thinking whatever it wants to think. It just can't stop it. It just. I like to meditate, and I do it, but my mind is not there. My mind is just doing its work, thinking about past and what's going to happen. And it just can't control the mind to be in peace.
Cool. Well, I personally don't want to stop my mind. I'm happy that my mind creates thoughts. If it didn't, I would have I'd be in real trouble if my mind stopped thinking. That might be something close to being dead. The issue, I think, is what we think about, right? What's the quality of my thoughts? Because even that Raj Yoga that we teach, I need to be able to create thoughts, and the thoughts that I create will lead me into different experiences. So I think it's so essential that your mind creates thoughts. But in meditation, we also need to be able to stabilize our mind on the thoughts that we create. And for me, the main thing that creates that internal stabilization is soul consciousness and the practice with the third eye. Some of the different teachers in Madhaban also focus quite a bit on this. In particular, I know that Atum Prakash Bhai and Suraj Bhai both are fantastic for their commentaries and classes around this. So there's a lot of material to support it as well. But I don't literally, I don't know, for 10 years, I've been maintaining that part of my meditation practice where I'm visualizing a light here, sometimes visualizing like the energy of peace and the vibration of peace, sometimes just connecting here, going to Baba. It's like I practice so many things to keep, in a sense, stimulating or expanding the third eye, opening that up. And I find those are the thoughts that really settle my mind down. Otherwise, if I'm just, when I sit to meditate, if at that time my mind is going into the past or thinking about other things, I really need to practice bringing it back and finding a way to stabilize it. Like, it's not bad to think, not at all. It's just a question of if the thoughts are appropriate to the time. If I go to Baba's room and then I'm thinking about all these other things, that's not going to be helpful to me. At that time, I need to be able to put those thoughts aside and focus on my meditation practice. But it's just training, I think, but it does take just persistence over time. Does that help, Shubha?
Yeah,
what you're thinking about? Or
keeps on thinking what they, all the time. I just can't bring it to calm down or peace or just,
yeah.
And that's why I try to attend meditation, just to see, but my mind is just running somewhere. So
Yeah.
I'll keep trying.
Yeah,
Can I
never
add
give
some-
up, because, yeah, please.
Yeah, sure. Definitely soul consciousness that you said is the key. So Shobna sister, I had the similar problem. My mind used to run a lot. The thing that has been really helping me, I can share, I don't know whether it will work for you. So basically, whatever thought you have, right? Like, you treat your mind like your baby. So it's your child. Like, you think that thought and see it as a detached person. Like, okay, I thought this, it's not a right thought. It is related to my past. I don't want to think this. So I immediately bring those Baba's statements that he brings in the Mulli. Oh, drama is beneficial. This was the accurate thing that had to happen. Full stop. Full stop. Now my mind, I kind of give him instruction. Now you won't listen to it again. Okay. And Baba, you're going to help my mind. No, not again. That full stop. So basically, I also heard in some other brothers talk that putting a full stop at the right time on your thoughts is one of the biggest gift we Brahman people get. That waste thought, this was a waste thought, full stop. Can transform that thought to drama was beneficial. It's accurate according to time. If it is in future, then I am a God's child. So Baba is responsible to take care of everything. I have to just practice soul consciousness, right? So you make basically use Baba to your right, that he use him like a father. My Baba, you have to take care of it, right? Of course, while you do this internal conversation, you have to be a little bit soul consciousness. Otherwise, sometimes it doesn't work. But yeah, be a little detached. Oh, I thought this, full stop. Now I have to transform it. And then your mind actually listens. Your mind doesn't think that thought again. And then your chain of thought stop. And during meditation also, I sometimes move my lips. It really helped me. Somebody gave me that tip, that you move your lips and repeat the commentary, guided commentary. It helps you concentrate. I'm a soul. I'm a powerful soul. Even you speak to yourself. So when your mind is running a lot, this is one tip that helped me, that think what the guided commentary is saying, or even if it's an instrumental music, say your affirmations a little bit so that you can hear it yourself. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
I like that about moving the lips.
Yeah.
I hadn't thought about that.
Because we are not there yet, brother. You people are more elevated, so we have to practice different creativity.
It's good. It's a good yukti, good trick.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
If anyone have any questions around their own personal practice, and then what does it take for you to go to the next level, because Baba's Gyan is very deep, right? And then there is a lot to experience. If we are in a status quo where, oh, okay, be a soul, go beyond, same commentary if you are giving for the last 15 years. So maybe something has to change. So if you have any questions around how can you go to the next level, feel free to unmute yourself and ask your question. Yeah.
Shanti.
Shanti.
Yeah, I do have a question. Thank you, Brother Dan. It was really nice experience. It felt very practical, and you know we can relate to it. My question is that I do meditation. It's been almost 3 years that I'm doing it, and I do feel the vibrations. But sometimes I feel vibrations so much that it's kind of like I'm trying to focus on that more. So I'm becoming more body conscious, and my goal is to become soul conscious. But in a process, I feel like my whole focus is on that vibration. So is it okay? I mean, is the good thing, or I should be doing something different for that?
Can you explain a bit more, Chabangi? Like the meaning is like like how do you feel it's making you more body conscious, or that you focus on the vibration?
So I feel like once I start meditating, I feel here some kind of swirling vibration going on, and when I feel that, I instead of going to Param Dham or trying to connect to Baba, I start getting more focused on my vibrations. So sometimes I feel like that makes me more focused on my body consciousness, because obviously forehead, so I'm focusing on forehead. So I feel like instead of feeling bodiless, I'm more thinking about my forehead. So I don't know whether it's the right thing to do, or is there anything I should be doing differently?
Okay, interesting. Means I'm not 100% sure, because I'm not in your brain type of thing, but do you like the visualization of light will normally stabilize my thoughts in that area. So maybe it's just that there is other energy sort of swirling around or something, and I need to also continue to visualize or bring in a quality of the soul, like Om Shanti, I am peace, and then just let my mind dwell on the thought of peace, whether I visualize the word or move into just feeling deeply peaceful or still inside. But maybe that will sort of stabilize the swirling aspect. Okay. But definitely the aim is also to bring Baba into that. Like, it's good that we practice soul consciousness first, otherwise there is no Baba, so to speak. In body consciousness, we won't feel his vibes. But it's also true that I don't want to get kind of, in a sense, lost in my soul consciousness practice to the extent that I kind of lose interest in Baba as well, or something. Like, I do want to use it as the springboard to connect to him. So I think keep doing what you're doing. It sounds constructive. Yeah.
Thank you.
You can give a light commentary, and then we will wrap up.
Okay, cool. Om Shanti. So I naturally bring my attention back inside to my mind's eye, what's happening in my inner world. And I guide myself by visualizing my original form as an incorporeal soul. I, the soul, am a being of deep peace, deep silence, and I visualize the form of myself at the center of the forehead. a star radiating peace. My vibrations of peace shine out and create an aura of peace around me. But I, the soul, am the tiny star sitting here behind the eyes. In this awareness of myself, the soul, I start to visualize Shiv Baba, the Supreme Soul, far beyond this physical earth. But with just one thought, I can fly my consciousness to be in his presence. And just by visualizing that scene in my mind's eye, I hold myself in the presence of God, his unlimited purity shining into my being. I, the soul, am connecting to my real Father, that being who's completely true, completely loving, overflowing, unlimited source of energy. Because I am a being of light, there is no boundary or obstruction to my mind's ability to soak in this energy. So I just allow Baba's vibrations, Baba's light to flow into me through my mind, through my connection internally to him. The more I visualize the form of God and the vibration or energy, it's as if it pulls me closer. The more I see Baba, the more I'm pulled to him, and the more I absorb his pure energy into myself, the soul. It's a natural connection between I, the soul, and my Supreme Father, who has unconditional love for me, his child. There's a natural feeling of belonging. This is the one that I've always wanted to be with. The one who can satisfy me fully inside. The one who can protect me and care for me like no one else. I feel myself pull closer and closer. The purity of the Supreme Soul is filled with spiritual power, vital energy. I just love this presence, this energy. And just as easily as I took my mind into Baba's presence, so I bring my attention back to my physical surrounds, whatever's around me. Again, I visualize my form as a star at the center of the forehead, looking into this physical world through this body. But the real world is actually what's inside. This physical world is secondary. My internal connection to God is primary. And now I will go about my life with this correct order of what's primary. Om Shanti.